The Galactic Council had made its decision 50 standard cycles ago, and Councillor Vexthor still remembered the laughter that echoed through the crystalline halls when Ambassador Chen delivered humanity's final warning. "Touch our colony worlds," Chen had said, her voice steady despite the mocking chirps and guttural snorts surrounding her, "and you will learn why Earth buried its weapons of war, not because we couldn't use them, but because we chose not to." The Council had voted unanimously to ignore her. Humans were newcomers, after all, barely 3 centuries into space travel while the eldest species had sailed the stars for millennia. They were soft creatures who wept at the deaths of strangers and wrote poetry about sunsets. What threat could they possibly pose? Vexthor now stood amid the smoking ruins of the Krellian homeworld, watching human soldiers move with terrifying efficiency through the rubble. They didn't celebrate. They didn't pause. They simply continued, methodical as a plague, relentless as entropy itself. The war had begun predictably enough. The Krellian Empire, backed by the Council's implicit approval, had annexed 3 human frontier colonies. 17 million civilians, men, women, and children, were processed into labor camps. The Council expected protests, perhaps economic sanctions, maybe even a brief skirmish that would remind humanity of its place in the cosmic hierarchy. Instead, Earth went silent for 6 months. During that silence, humanity's industrial worlds transformed. Factories that once produced consumer goods retooled for war. Shipyards expanded at impossible speeds. And from Earth's museums, from sealed vaults buried beneath mountains, humanity retrieved what it had hoped never to use again. The first strike came without warning. The Krellian Third Fleet, 50,000 strong, vanished in the space of an afternoon. No distress calls, no survivors, just empty space where an armada had been. The Council called it a fluke, a technical malfunction perhaps. The second strike eliminated the Krellian Second Fleet, then the first, then their planetary defense grid. In 3 weeks, the Krellian Empire, undefeated for 4,000 years, stood defenseless before humanity's wrath. Vexthor had watched the recordings obsessively, trying to understand what had happened. Human ships moved unlike anything in Council space. They didn't maneuver like vessels. They struck like predators, appearing from nowhere, dealing impossible damage and vanishing before return fire could lock on. Their weapons didn't just destroy, they erased, leaving nothing but dissociated atoms where proud warships had been. But it wasn't the technology that terrified Vexthor. Technology could be countered, stolen, replicated. No, what chilled his 3 hearts was the look in human eyes. A young human soldier stood nearby, no older than a breeding cycle by Vexthor's estimation. Her armor bore scorch marks and her face carried that peculiar human expression. Not rage, not joy, but something far more frightening. Determination, purpose, the absolute certainty of righteous cause. "Why?" Vexthor croaked, his translator struggling with his fear-thickened dialect. "Why continue? The Krellians have surrendered. Their government has collapsed. Your colonies have been liberated. Why burn their worlds?" The soldier looked at him with eyes older than her years. "We warned you. All of you. The Council, the Krellians, the trade federations. We told you what would happen. But this..." Vexthor gestured at the devastation. "This is genocide." "No," another voice interjected. Ambassador Chen approached, looking decades older than when she'd stood before the Council. "Genocide is what the Krellians did to our colonies. This is justice. And a lesson." She pulled up a holographic display. Images flickered past. Human children in labor camps, mass graves on frontier worlds, experiments that violated every convention of civilized warfare. 17 million of our people, Chen said quietly. 17 million civilians who only wanted to live in peace, to raise families, to exist. The Council knew what was happening. We sent evidence, testimony, pleading requests for intervention, and you did nothing. Vexthor's crest drooped. It was true. The Council had filed the reports away, deemed the matter an internal dispute between developing species. "We are not like you," Chen continued, her voice carrying across the ruins. "We don't wage war for territory or resources or pride. We tried, by all our gods, we tried to be better than our ancestors. We joined your council believing in a universe of laws and justice." She turned, and Vexthor saw tears streaming down her face, but her expression remained hard as neutronium. "You taught us we were fools, that the only law the galaxy respects is power, The only justice is what you can enforce yourself. So we remembered who we used to be, before we reached for the stars. We remembered the species that climbed to the top of its food chain not through size or strength, but through something far more dangerous. What? Vexthor whispered. The willingness to do absolutely anything to protect our own. The capacity to turn our entire civilization into a weapon. The inability to stop until the threat is not just defeated, but erased so completely that none dare threaten us again. Chen activated another display. It showed star maps, dozens of species who had allied with the Krellians, or voted to approve the annexation, or simply looked away when humanity pleaded for help. The Krellians are first, she said, not last. Every species that participated, that enabled, that ignored our warnings will learn the same lesson. We don't want your territory. We don't want your submission. We want something far simpler. What do you want? Vexthor asked, though he feared he already knew. Chen's smile was colder than the void between stars. We want the galaxy to remember. When humanity says never again, we mean it. When we draw a line and say do not cross, we will burn the universe itself before we let that line be violated. We want every species, every civilization, every being with ambitions of conquest to know one absolute truth. She leaned close, and Vexthor smelled the ash and blood on her uniform. Humanity tried peace. We begged for it, pleaded for it. Now you'll have what you chose instead. You'll have war until every debt is paid, every wrong answered, every threat eliminated. You ignored our warnings. Chen straightened, her voice carrying across the comm channels to every human unit on the planet. Every ship in the system. Every soldier carrying Earth's wrath to a galaxy that had dismissed them as weak. Now the galaxy burns, and it will continue burning until they understand what they should have learned when we were still willing to teach gently. She looked back at Vexthor one final time. We are humanity, and we do not forgive. The human forces moved on to the next world. Behind them, the Krellian homeworld smoldered, a monument to the cost of underestimating a species that had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and themselves. The council would hold emergency sessions. They would call humanity monsters, terrorists, a threat to galactic peace, but they would also remember. They would look at their star maps and wonder if their worlds would be next. They would count their fleets and know they were insufficient. They would remember Ambassador Chen's words in the council chamber, 50 cycles ago, when humanity had still offered peace. The galaxy had made its choice. Now it would live or die with the consequences. Humanity's wrath was unending. And it had only just begun.